This is my first meeting, so please be gentle with me as we go through today. I'll do my best, and we'll go through today. So, can I welcome all members and officers to this meeting of the Development Control Committee, which will be held as a hybrid meeting. The meeting is being recorded and will be available via the Council's website to be viewed as soon as practicable following the meeting. Everyone participating in the meeting will be accessing this meeting either from the Council chamber or from remote locations. Please could everybody ensure that their mobile phones are switched to off or silent mode. Members will all have received an electronic copy of the agenda. I will ask officers to present a summary of the key points. For the record, the agenda can be viewed on the Council's website. Members and officers will be speaking at various points during the meeting, and those speaking may switch their microphones and where remote, their cameras on at that point. But I would ask you that with the exception of myself as chairperson, at all other times, please keep your cameras and microphones switched off, as this will help minimize any background noise and interference and to ensure the connection remains as stable as possible. Whether in the chamber or remote, if any members or officers wish to raise a point or question, they should press the hands up icon on the screen hand at the top right hand side of Microsoft Teams window, and I'll come to you in the order in which I receive those requests. Please lower your hand once you finish speaking. The chat button has been disabled for this meeting. Please do not use your microphone or turn it on until I invite you to do so. Officers of Democratic Services will be supporting the meeting and will be monitoring the use of microphones throughout the meeting, and when necessary, they will mute those not being used. I will also ask the officers to introduce themselves as and when I invite them to speak during the course of the meeting. They too should ensure microphones and cameras are switched off when not in use, please. We will now proceed to the agenda. Thank you. So the first item on the agenda today is for apologies for absence. So what apologies do we have, please?
I haven't actually received any, Chair, but I don't know if any members have got any for another member.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just apologies. I will have to leave at 12:30 for another meeting, just to inform you of that.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Wortham. Michael Pittman.
Thank you, Chair. I received apologies from Councillor Richard Collins.
Great, thank you very much. Councillor Griffiths.
Thank you. Can I declare a non-pecuniary interest for item 12, please?
Okay, so
thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on to item 2, declarations of interest, please. So, Councillor Griffiths, thank you very much. Councillor Watson.
Yes, thank you. Personal interest in relation to agenda item 8. I'm a member of the Bridgend Town Council.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to declare a prejudicial interest as a result of my responses to the pre-deposit LDP on item 9, but I do intend to speak.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. We'll give you time to speak and then leave the meeting at that point. Thank you. Councillor Pratt.
We're working. Thank you, Chair. Yes, personal on agenda item 10 as a member of Porthcawl Town Council, but I'm not a member of the Planning Committee on that authority. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pratt. Councillor Easterbrook.
A personal declaration on item 8, member of Bridgend Town Council, but I'm not on the Planning Committee.
Thank you very much. Councillor Griffiths, is that a legacy hand, or do you need to come back in? Thank you. And Councillor Easterbrook. Okay, thank you very much. So, any other declarations of interest before I move on? Okay, thank you very much. So we'll go on to site visits. So, we are going to confirm a date of Wednesday the 6th, so the 6th of the 9th, 23, for proposed site inspections. This is just a point for note for everybody. Any comments around that proposed date? Okay, thank you very much. So we move on to approval of minutes, item 4 on the agenda, to receive minutes for the 4th of the 5th, 23, and also the 15th of the 6th, 23. So I'll open it up to comments for...
I think Councillor Griffiths has moved.
She'll move first, okay, thank you. And a second there? Okay, thank you very much. So any comments or any adjustments to the minutes for those two meetings, please? All done. Okay, thank you very much. So anybody against? Okay, so we consider those passed. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to public speakers. I understand there's a list of public speakers for today.
Sorry, yeah. Whoops. Yeah, my name is Roderick Jones. I'm a senior solicitor and legal advisor to the committee. Just to read out the names, Chair, but obviously when we reach the relevant items, that's when they'll be called to speak.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have Councillor Freya Bledsoe on item 8 and also Pete Sully for Bridgend College and also Councillor Unwin as well for item 8. On item 10, we have Catherine Tanner-Williams and Rob Jones. On item 14, we have Laura Jones. So those are the speakers for today. And we'll call on those as we get to those at appropriate items. So we move on now to the amendment sheet, which I understood has been sent out. Thank you very much. Councillor Bennett.
Sorry, Chair, I would also like to speak on item 9. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll note that. Okay, thank you.
And we'll also add the Vice Principal would like to share the minutes on for the applicant on the.
Do you want to put your microphone?
Good point, Chair. The Vice Principal for the Bridgend College will share the minutes with the agent on the Bridgend College scheme. So it's Andrew Gibbs.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. So we move on to the amendment sheet then, which I understood has just been sent out just prior to the meeting. Are we happy with accepting that as the amendment sheet for today, please? Any comments?
That's okay, Chair.
Okay. Should we move straight on? Do you need a vote on that?
No, we didn't need vote.
Right, okay, thank you very much.
And sorry, item 7 is just for guidance, Chair. That's the Development Committee guidance, which is part of every agenda. So it's just a noting matter.
Okay, so happy to note any comments on item 7? No. Okay, thank you very much. Move on to item 8, which is probably the largest discussion topic for today, which is the new college. So if I open up and pass it over to Councillor Bledsoe to speak first, or
yes,
yep. Okay, so Councillor Bledsoe, if you'd like to. Pardon?
We're probably, Councillor, as you. Yeah. And 5 minutes. But it should be time. It should be time.
Okay, thank you. So just a reminder, Councillor Bledsoe, we have 5 minutes for speaking. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you very much to the committee for this opportunity to speak on this matter. As the ward member, a number of my residents have come to me and they have discussed this matter quite extensively, and that is the parking issue that is around this development here. We only have, we were told 40, it's actually 39 as I found out, parking spaces within the college site. And there is a concern that parking will be an issue. I do know that it's been in part mitigated by the parking scheme that's been implemented in the streets around. However, there are a couple of streets that aren't under that scheme already, and I think that might be wise to extend that because they are between here and the old college site as well. But also as well, there's a number of issues with that parking scheme. So I think it just needs tweaking a little bit in order to get it right, and that will be sufficient. I'm also really heartened to hear that the college has taken on board our recommendation that there would be a shuttle bus from the Pencoed site, which does have plenty of parking. And of course, there's still the parking at the college site on Cowbridge Road. So hopefully with this and with active travel routes and encouragement within that, which we spoke about yesterday at the site meeting with access to purchasing bikes, etc., I think it's fair to say that it's covered. So hopefully it's going to be a non-issue for residents now because it's been considered. So I'd like to thank the college for taking into consideration that matter. But I would ask as well to put on record my thanks to the college about clarifying the issue of the theatre being open as well, because that has been a hot topic within this chamber as to whether we get sufficient coverage in terms of culture, heritage, etc. And we've been told that the college will be open to us during the holidays as well. So that is a good thing. So I'm heartened to hear that as well. And thank you very much. But on the parking issue, we will be watching. We will be keeping an eye on it. And hopefully it won't be an issue. But if it does become an issue, then we would have to look at alternatives for this as well, please, because we can't have residents overrun with cars from students. And I do know that we were told that 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds aren't as interested in cars as they once were. I beg to differ. I do beg to differ because I have 3 children, 2 of which are drivers and 1 of which can't drive because of his medical condition. So I do know there is still a hot interest despite rising costs in insurance, etc. But if we can find a way to mitigate these issues, then I think it's a good thing to have the college coming into town, and I welcome it. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bledsoe. Would any officers like to comment on the traffic management and the transport plans?
Chair, it's a matter for you, but it's normal for officers to pick up all comments, you know, after the speakers have been there,
okay.
After
thank you.
An introduction of the report.
That's all right.
Okay.
Councillor
Okay. Councillor Unwin, if you would like to speak now, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members and officers, for the opportunity to have a few comments on the what is obviously the biggest development that the town centre has seen for very many years. We've touched on the matter of parking already. It is a moot point. We don't know precisely how it's going to pan out with as few as 39 parking spaces on site. At the site meeting yesterday, it was a suggestion was made, and I think it's a very good one, that the Lawn Stewart site, just on the other side of the Brackler Street, which has its car parking agreement already, that could be used as an overflow car park, and I think the college would do well to look very seriously at having that as a stopgap if things start to go wrong. Much has been made of the buses that will bring students from not only within BCBC but from other authorities as well. We can never know in 2 years' time, when allegedly the college will be ready, whether those bus services will still be available to students. We understand, of course, that the service starting in September for BCBC students, that has been radically altered from what we would have normally have expected, and it remains to be seen whether there's capacity on those service buses to take up to 700 students, as it's been suggested, at the cost of £250,000. So it's a consideration. We can't know what will happen in 2025. We would like to think that those bus services will still be available. If the college is to open as planned in September 2025, I just wonder whether on condition, which is the number here, on condition 24 on page 40, where we speak of the operating times for the development, Saturday afternoons and Sundays have been omitted. And by my calculation, on say a 2-year build, that's 125 working days that potentially are being denied. It's not as if this is in a residential street. It is in the town centre, and I think Sundays particularly are empty. So it would seem, with all the problems that there may be with Network Rail, in finding weekends to do the work close to the railway track, then perhaps we're being a little bit draconian with restricting that working operation. The time is ticking on, so I will simply say that obviously Town Council, along with many other people, welcome the college coming into the town. if it can open in September 25, all well and good. But I think if it's not going to open, then we really need to be told fairly early on. But can I conclude by congratulating the planning department for obviously the intense work that they've put into this application. It is very complex, but I sincerely hope that we are very, very fortunate in getting this development, but there's a lot to happen between now and then. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Unwin. So we move on to Pete Sully next, please.
Okay, good morning. Actually, my name is Andrew Gibbs. I'm Vice Principal at Bridgend College, and I'm Senior Lead on the project. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to say a few words. Hopefully, through the consultation process, the merits of the project have been clearly outlined. However, I just want to state that the college's governing body regard this investment as the biggest decision it's ever made in its 100-year history. It is regarded as once-in-a-generation opportunity. The project has the potential to regenerate Bridgend Town Centre and support local business in line with the Welsh Government's commitment to adopting a town centre's first approach with regards to publicly funded developments. It will offer the community access to state-of-the-art facilities, including a 200-seat theatre, training salons, kitchens, meeting rooms and workshops, while also creating an opportunity to improve the public realm in this part of the town. For the college itself, this project will allow us to provide for both current and future generations of students and staff an aspirational setting for 21st century education and training facilities that they and local employers alike demand and deserve. This will enable the college to fulfill its commitment to serve the needs of its community. I do hope you will support this application, and the college looks forward to working with the council and its officers to deliver an amazing project that will allow us to create a legacy that will benefit all of our families for generations to come. Hand over to Pete now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again, members, for your time during yesterday's site visit and the opportunity to speak today. As you'll be aware, the police station has recently been demolished and the multi-storey car park is no longer in use. The proposed scheme comprises the delivery of a modern educational facility for Bridgend College, which will replace the dated Cowbridge Road campus and will comprise community uses in the form of a theatre and cafe. The scheme will be BREEAM excellent and low zero carbon and will include extensive areas of grass seeding roof and PV panels. The scheme has been developed by Rio Architects, who designed the STEAM building at Bridgend College's Pencoed campus. The design has been developed through extensive pre-application discussions with the Plan Authority and will provide a significant visual improvement to the area. Significant public realm improvements are proposed, particularly to the front, which is Brackler Street, and the rear, the trees by as they were yesterday's meeting concluded. The scheme includes a total of 116 cycle parking spaces in a variety of locations around the site, including covered cycle racks and Sheffield stands. Notwithstanding the conditions being imposed requesting additional cycle parking, this is accepted by the applicant. In terms of car parking, Block 2 will provide 39 car parking spaces, including 5 EV spaces and 8 blue badge spaces, and the Highways Authorities accept this. A condition is imposed to tweak that layout as just requested by Councillor Bledsoe. In addition, improvements to active travel routes in the surrounding area have been secured by planning condition. A few questions were asked at yesterday's site visit, and I'll attempt to clarify them now. Proposals will result in the loss of 4 trees, 2 to the front and 1 to the rear of Block 1 and 1 to the rear of Block 2. These will be compensated for by the planting of 15 trees. In terms of the demographics of students in relation to their ability to drive, an existing snapshot of the Cowbridge Road campus identifies 939 students in 22-23. It must be noted here that not all students will be on site at the same time because of timetabling. Over 500 of those students, nearly 60%, are 17 or under when they enrol. Therefore, a significant number will not be old enough to drive or have just reached driving age. The free college bus services for non-BCBC students are privately managed and are designed to cover the needs of the students. This has led to increases in services over time to accommodate separate areas. At its current time, the college operates 7 buses, 1 to and from the Vale, which is ordinarily near capacity, and a minibus has been used in the past to supplement this service. 6 bus services operate to and from RCT, and these all are very popular with a high percentage of occupation. In conclusion, members, and as set out in the committee report, there are no objections in relation to planning policy, highways, drainage, conservation, noise, ground contamination, flooding, ecology or residential amenity from within the council and external technical consultees subject to conditions. There are no letters of objection from local residents. The scheme will significantly enhance the area, removing 2 large and very tired buildings and creating an excellent public realm and community facility, and will provide the best education for young people in Bridgend for many years to come. Members are therefore respectfully requested to approve the application in line with officer's recommendation. Thank you very much.
Okay, many thanks to all the speakers.
Councillor Clark, please raise their hand.
Okay, thank you. So, Councillor Clark, would you like to come in?
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to visit the parking issue. It's been said there's 39 parking spaces, and we keep talking about students visiting the college, driving, etc. Obviously, staff will be driving to the college. Do we know how many staff are actually employed by the college? And the other thing that's been mentioned this morning is that the majority of students will be 16 and 17 and will be unable to drive. Does that mean that they're only at the college for a year, or are they at the college for 3 years and obviously getting older and are able to drive? So those are my questions. I'm a bit concerned that there are only 39 parking spaces. Is there steps afoot to look at the parking area opposite Berry Smith on Cheapside there, so that there, you know, if there's a need for more parking spaces, then there's going to be hopefully some there. Thank you.
Rob can cover that in his talk, and if a member is happy with that, it can be covered in his main presentation.
So we'll have a main presentation from one of the officers, and they'll cover most of those topics in that, if you're happy with that, Councillor. Okay, thank you very much. So, Rodri, would you like to start us off?
Thank you, Chair. Morning, members. For the purposes of the recording, my name is Rodri Davis, Development and Building Control Manager. This application is reported to Development Control Committee due to its scale and significance for the town centre. As described at the full committee site visit yesterday, the scheme involves the redevelopment of the former Bridgend police station site and the condemned multi-storey car park at Cheapside for a new Bridgend College campus replacing its existing campus on Cowbridge Road. The new campus is hoped to be ready for occupation from autumn 2025. The relocation to the town centre is part of the wider Town Centre First initiative and wider regeneration proposals for the town centre. The campus is in a highly sustainable location close to the town's bus and train stations, and consequently the 39 on-site parking spaces is in accordance with the aims of Planning Policy Wales 11. The development will include a 200-seat auditorium and the Performing Arts Centre, separate from the purely educational elements of the college that will provide some community uses in the evenings and weekends. The scheme has been designed to balance aesthetics, robustness and functionality with a view to achieving a BREEAM excellent rating and a carbon net zero development. The main building is stepped back from Brackler Street, concentrating the bulk of its mass towards the centre of the site, with an attractive public realm entrance from Brackler Street. The proposed materials and finishes have been enhanced, resulting in a lighter and less industrial feel. The scheme utilises aluminium cladding, partial artificial stone cladding, glass and brick and cement cladding, with final details to be agreed by condition. In terms of the highway implications of the development, the application has been supported by a raft of supporting documents, as highlighted yesterday and in my report. The college campus will effectively replace a police station and multi-storey car park and their associated levels of traffic. Deliveries for production, screenings or acts, etc., held within the 200-seat auditorium will arrive at the new lay-by to the east of Block 1. Secure bicycle parking to the rear of Block 2 will be supplemented by visitor, Sheffield stand or hoop type elements at the main entrances of both buildings to encourage use. In actual fact, the provision of cycle parking spaces will be in excess of the guidelines. The connection between the two buildings is critical to the success of the campus as a whole. Block 2 will house support functions, and it is anticipated that there will be significant interaction between the two buildings with a visually defined level access across the road. As discussed at the committee site visit yesterday, students who enrol at Bridgend College from RCT and the Vale of Glamorgan benefit from a free bus service, and the vast majority of the students, there'll be roughly 800 at any one time on the site, but 1,200 in total at the campus, will be below driving age. The staff and student travel survey identified that of the 206 student responses, 18% or 37 students out of the 206 responses currently drive to the Cowbridge Road campus. And of the 133 staff responses, 88% or 117 staff members out of that 133 currently drive to the Cowbridge Road campus as well. So it's obviously more of an issue for staff parking rather than student parking at the current time. The closest residential streets to the site are the subject of parking restrictions, and there is sufficient capacity within the town's public car parks to accommodate staff or students who simply insist on driving to the college or do not have access to any other means of travel. The Lawn Stewart site, as mentioned, did have a temporary planning permission as a car park for council officers, as temporary replacement as part of the redevelopment. And that site is actually likely to be used as a temporary compound during the construction phase. However, the intention, as with all these town centre developments, is to encourage active forms of travel or use of public transport over the provision of easy access to parking, as that would not be in line with national guidance. The staff and student travel survey has also identified the key pedestrian routes to the new site, and these will be improved to encourage active forms of travel to the campus prior to the occupation of the new college. The travel plan will be reviewed on an annual basis post-occupation to check on progress with achieving that modal shift. The new soft landscaping proposals and the retention and protection of the vast majority of trees around the site will benefit the setting of the campus as well as its biodiversity credentials. It is expected that Block 1 will be constructed as the multi-storey car park has been demolished, with Block 2 being developed soon afterwards as a rolling contract. There are no objections to the scheme whatsoever, and the application is recommended for approval, subject to conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Rodri. So if I could take everybody to page 35, and for the recommendation that we grant permission with the conditions as in your documents. So if I could have a mover and a seconder for this, please. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, so we can open this up now for any comments or any questions for officers, please. Okay, so Councillor John.
Thank you, Chair. We've been, excuse me, we've been told over and over and over that we need to keep learning lessons, which absolutely, you know, every day is a school day. I'm just wondering what's going to be done different compared to Bremenning and Pencoed schools, reference drop-off points, etc. Because obviously there's disabled bays, there's going to be disabled pupils and possibly staff. I'm just wondering what we're going to do different this time with the drop-off zones. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor John. Would an officer like to pick that up, please? Rodri?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Yes, good question. They've all been thought out through the development of this scheme. There are, if I remember rightly, on the existing scheme for the car park at the back of Block 2. There are five, I think, disabled parking bays. There will be scope, as discussed on site yesterday, for drop-off for the less mobile or able students and staff members. We're going to incorporate a level access between the two buildings because they need to work symbiotically. And effectively, the drop-offs have been considered, and this development, if you cannot easily cycle or walk to it, will be available for that type of user as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rodri. Councillor John, do you want to come back on any of that?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I heard Rodri right. Did you say it has been considered or it hasn't been considered?
It has.
Okay, are you happy, Councillor John? Okay, thank you very much. So we move on to Councillor Kern, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's been discussed quite a lot. My issue was the parking as well. When I used to drop off and pick my wife, who was a part-time lecturer there back a long time ago, there was always a problem. No problem dropping her off. But coming in to pick her up, you could be waiting and I got to be honest, I was always guilty of illegal parking to make sure I picked a good spot, especially on a wet, windy night when you're carrying your cases and your books out of there. So my concern is, it was brought up by Councillor Freya Bledsoe. I mean, you got residential parking there. A lot of people will be dropped off and picked up. So as long as it's monitored once it's functional, I think like she explained, there's a few needs to be tweaked or kept monitored carefully, because you will find that a lot of people will be dropped off and picked up, and they will be parking wherever they can, the nearest point to the exit, so they can pick up obviously their children or their spouse or whatever it is to take them home, especially in the winter months. So that does need to be monitored, and an ongoing monitoring. That was my only concern. Otherwise, I can't see no reason to not approve this application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kern. Is anybody also like to comment on any of that?
Yeah. Good point. I think it's going to be incidental. Pickups and drop-offs. You've got the Asda car park very close to the site. You've got the Aldi car park opposite as well. Other areas in the town, so it's almost immediately available if you're just doing the incidental spaces and you're not looking to park there because obviously these supermarkets are very precious about their parking spaces as well. But talking of 10 minutes, 15 minutes at a time, I'm sure those areas will be more than accessible for that use then. So it's at the end of the day, it's probably one of the most sustainable locations in the Bridgend town centre, and easily accessible. Can park up at Asda or Aldi as I mentioned, and for those pickups, and there will be scope within the development itself. That the car park behind Block 2 will be managed. It'll be overseen by a member of the college with a barrier as well to ensure that that isn't being abused by staff and students alike. So it'll be controlled and overseen and managed to an inch of its life, I presume. So it'll be managed in that extent. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Rodri. I'm going to Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry to be boring, and I think it's a fantastic opportunity for Bridgend. The boring bit is, again, parking. We are talking about parking when the college is up and running. What is going to happen to parking with all the contractors while the site is under construction? Because first phase is going to be on the old police station site. I did hear Rodri, I think, say that the old yard opposite Berry Smith is going to be used as a sort of compound. So where are the traffic while it's under construction for the workers, etc.? Where are they going to be able to park? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harrison. Rodri?
Thank you. Yes, yeah, good question. We've got a condition about a construction method statement which will be developed with the contractor, obviously. But as part of that compound, obviously we don't want contractors or subcontractors even to be parking all along Cheapside, blocking the one-way system for the bus services using it. It'll still be live. We'd be looking for traffic management as well to manage that. But on the compound itself, there will be provision for the parking of for contractors and subcontractors alike for that temporary period for the build to obviously limit the knock-on effect on the surrounding highway network, because that would be the last thing we want in this area. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rodri. Councillor Nora Clark.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, Rodri, I didn't catch how many. Did you mention how many staff there were?
No, I don't know exactly how many staff will transfer. There'll be less than what's on the Cowbridge Road campus now, because a lot of those courses are going to the relatively new STEAM Academy building in the Pencoed College site. So it's not quite a like for like. But at the end of the day, staff members who will be transferring from the Cowbridge Road site to this campus will be told exactly what the level of provision is, whether or not they've got access to a car parking space. If they haven't, they will have to organise other options. And like I mentioned in the presentation, there are plenty of spaces available within the numerous car parking spaces around the town centre. And what we're trying to encourage is, you know, if you're living in Pencoed or Llanharan, etc., you should be able to catch a train quite easily into the train station. It's a very short walk down Court Road, Norton Street, and up Bracker Street to the site. So what we're trying to do is gone are the days where we provide parking spaces for every staff member. Even though the council, we don't do that. So we're trying to encourage and almost force that modal shift. And with the site being in such a sustainable location, hopefully with bus services or train services, we'll be encouraging that use of public transport or even active forms of travel rather than the use of the private car.
Okay. You said earlier that some staff will be allowed on the campus, if you like, to park, and others will be told that they can't, basically. Is that the college telling them, or have we got a condition?
That's right. That'll be managed by the college
telling them. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Clark. I know we have the project leader there, the vice. What were you again? Your role? Vice Principal. Do you have an idea of how many staff that will be located at the site? Okay. Okay, thank you very much. For those who didn't hear that, and that's around about 200 staff that will be supporting on the site. I know a number of councillors have asked for that question. Thank you very much. So I'd like to offer to Jonathan here to just give a little bit of a background on the national policy around the parking in town centres.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Jonathan Parsons, Group Manager for Planning and Development Services. I wear two hats in this authority. I'm responsible for the planning service, but also for the strategic transport service, and that includes public transportation and active travel. I think it's quite clear that there is some concern about parking. It has been mentioned several times by members and with the previous speakers. It is encouraging that generally everybody in this room and online would support such a use in this town centre, in Bridgend town centre as a town centre first priority. Now, in terms of car parking, many years ago we did have parking standards that were minimum. So we had to put a minimum amount of car parking for any development, whether it's a house or whether it's an office accommodation or whether it's a college. Now, those standards have changed. That's changed some time ago to maximum standards of parking. Now, there's been further policy developments since then. We now have national planning guidance. We have a national plan for Wales that's published by Welsh Government. That's Future Wales 2040. That outlines sort of high-level planning policies, and that comes down then to Planning Policy Wales, which is again a national document. Now, Planning Policy Wales, in its latest iteration, makes it quite clear that in locations, in town centres that are well served by public transportation, that we should not be developing new car parking. That's quite clear. That's a national planning policy. We have to have regard to that. That's our duty as a planning authority. We have to have regard to that. Now, I accept that there are people that are still going to drive into the town centre, and that's an inevitability. Cars are still part of our transport hierarchy, but in terms of national planning policy, the private car is at the bottom of that hierarchy. And there's all sorts of things driving this. There's carbon agenda, carbon reduction agenda, clean air agenda. That's a big issue for many, many town centres. Bridgend has an air quality management area. We don't want to encourage more cars into the town centre. There's an issue, and cars cause congestion. Even if you have an electric car, you're still going to have traffic congestion. So the national planning policy picture is very clear on this. The priority for new developments is always active travel first. That's walking, cycling, public transport, and car comes at the bottom of that. So I understand that there are some concerns. The parking has been raised, but this is a town centre development. It has a train station, it has a bus station, and it is well served by active travel routes as well. What you see on the plan is about as much as we would allow in a town centre development. In fact, you could have a complete new office building and have no car parking whatsoever with it, and that will be fully in line with planning policy and car parking policy. So, by the fact that they are providing 39 and 40 spaces, that's more than they need, or more than what we would normally allow. And that is because of the unique nature of this particular development, which is open to a range of people with varying abilities. So we've accommodated that. But if you look at Bridgend on an aerial photograph and you zoom out, you will see the amount of tarmac is given over to car parking within the town. And what we can't do is put more of that there. And that's quite clear in planning policy. So I thought I needed to bring that to members' attention. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. And we'll go back to the questions. And so, Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Chair. The current site has quite a lot of parking, and as Councillor Kearns has mentioned, it's always rammed. I too have really grave concerns about the parking at 39 spaces, and I've just listened to what Jonathan has said. But actually, I understand that we're aiming for sustainable modes of transport, but we aren't there yet. We don't have infrastructure to support it. We are not served well by public transport. I'm really sorry, I have to disagree on that point. And we have active travel routes in some areas, but not other areas. So we're not even well connected in our own county. Car parks cost money. People are going to be driving, regardless of what we are aiming to do here. They are going to be driving, they are going to be parking up, and they're going to be looking at side streets if they can't afford the transport in and the car parks themselves. So I do think we need to think about this in a little bit more detail. Yeah, thank you. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bennett, would any officer like to come in on, please? Officer to Janine.
Yes, good morning everyone. My name is Janine Nightingale. I'm the Corporate Director of Communities, so with responsibility for planning. Yes, we're very aware of the parking issue that you've raised with us today. And one of the things that we're very keen to do is to extend the resident permit parking around this campus and around the Bridgend Town Centre. I mean, in truth, what this is a cultural shift. It'll be a cultural shift for us all because cars are being discouraged. We are discouraged from using the car, but you are right, Councillor Bennett. Until we get more reliable public transport and until our active travel networks are more mature, we're not going to see that move. However, we are bound by national planning that this is the amount of parking that we are allowed in this development. It is in a town centre. It's very sustainable. So what can we do as a council? Well, what we can do is to protect those residential areas around by doing the on-street residential parking permits. And that's something that we'd like to do and we've talked about, particularly with the college. The other thing we need to do is we need to encourage those students and those teachers. It's a transition. It's at least another 2.5, 3 years before they move to the new building. It's about moving to other forms of transport. And the worst case scenario is if they do bring a car, they pay for parking. But we'd like to, over the next 3 years, work with the college and see that cultural shift towards those modes of transport. But one thing we will do, and I can assure you as a planning committee today, is we will be looking extensively at those residential communities, those residential streets that surround the Bridgend Town Centre area, and we will look to extend the residential permit parking.
Thank you very much, Janine. I wonder whether I could also ask one of the officers to take us through condition 8 and the monitoring of the transport plan going forward. I think maybe that hasn't been fully mentioned about the ongoing nature. I know that Councillor Bledsoe raised this in her point earlier about whether we can tweak this and improve it over time. So I wonder whether somebody could just talk through that provision, that condition 8, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, travel plans. The applicant and the highway consultant has provided a draft travel plan. Travel plans are live documents effectively, and they're reviewed on an annual basis. So we're looking for them to achieve those targets in the travel plan. And if they are not hit, then we can introduce more measures to be able to achieve that modal shift as we've been discussing. So that's what the condition requires, is a 12-month review, and not only on car usage but also uptake of active travel modes of transport to the site, walking and cycling, and also the services from out of area. The services from RCT and the Vale, and the location of where the students are picked up and dropped off, to make it even more, with the fact that it's a free service for students, that should be enticing enough, but to make it even more attractive for those students, to get them as close to the campus as possible. So we'll be looking at potentially using the existing bus stops on Cheapside itself, but importantly without having a knock-on effect on the public bus services using those bus bays. So that can be worked up, and we'll only really know how it goes once the development is occupied in 2 years' time, or autumn to 2025, and then we'll review it every year from there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Rodri. We'll go back to the questions now. So, Councillor Harrison, please.
Thank you, Chair. I can understand that we're not building new car parks, but surely we're losing a multi-storey car park which serves the town. So we're not building new. We should be replacing old. Surely, if we want the town to expand, and especially with the new college, and governments say that we're not supposed to be building new car parks. Well, we're not. We're replacing an old car park. Also, when you look at Aldi store in Porthcawl, the amount of parking that's been granted for Aldi, so is there a difference between commercial use and educational use? Could somebody explain that to me, please? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harrison. I'll pass it on to Jonathan to respond, please.
Yeah, you raise a valid point. Why, if you take a car park down, you should have it replaced elsewhere. Unfortunately, that's not how the planning policy translates. It's no new car parking. That issue will, however, be addressed in the wider regeneration strategy for Bridgend Town Centre, and that will include a parking strategy as well. So that will be addressed, and what we will be needing to look at is what is the nature of the parking demand within Bridgend, what's the current demand, whether that's public or private car parks, what's the demand likely to be in the future. So that's a piece of work that will be done with the wider regeneration of the town centre coming forward. And we need to know that picture, obviously, because what we don't want to do is stop any access into the town centre or discourage people because they for various reasons, they have to use the car. But yeah, the policy is reasonably clear. You know, town centre. If you go to Cardiff, the same. You won't find an new office accommodation there with car parking. The BBC offices doesn't have car parking in Central Square, and the new development, the new skyscrapers going there, has no car parking, and there's 100 odd apartments going in there. There is no car parking. You live in a town centre or a city centre. That's your choice. So that is the thrust of policy. It's not just in Bridgend. It's throughout Wales and throughout the UK. In terms of Aldi and Porthcawl, Aldi is a different location. That site is a different location. It's not a town centre as such, in the same sense that Bridgend is, which has a railway station and a bus station. So that the parking there is what the maximum we would have allowed for that type of development. But in also doing that development, Aldi have also contributed to upgrading active travel within that vicinity of the store, and they were providing links into the main shopping streets via active travel infrastructure. And we also have the work is starting now on the bus facility at the Metrolink, which sits adjacent to Aldi, and that will also be another public transport piece of public transport infrastructure to encourage people to shift modes. But to answer your councillor's question in terms of are there different standards for public or for education and for commercial? Yes, there are different parking standards for different classes of our categories of development. But fundamentally, overall, the drive now is maximum parking, not minimum.
Thank you very much. So we move on to Councillor Wortham, please.
Thank you, Chair. If I may, I'd like to go back to the drop-off situation. At the moment, there's a substantial drop-off point outside the police station, which has been in use for many years, and I understand that is going. And what's been put in place is a smaller deliveries bay outside Block 2 on the Aldi side. Surely we need to be putting a multi-use loading drop-off bay there, not just for deliveries, to ensure that the problems that's been raised earlier, that people will have dropping off people and picking people up. It just seems sensible to me. Why are we doing away with the existing bay for a start? And it's quite substantial. It's been there for many a year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Rodri again.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, good question. There are bays in front of the old former police station now demolished. They will be changed into pavement, so they'll be effectively stopped up. There will be a bigger delivery bay on the opposite side of Block 1. That will not be in use. It will be road traffic order on that is to control it for deliveries only. But that will not be in use permanently. There is scope in front of block 1 as well for management of drop-offs and pickups from there, as I mentioned earlier, and the surrounding areas as well. So you've got laybys, car parks in very close proximity to this campus, depending on which block you need to access, which will be quite easily accessed, and for people, parents, whatever, dropping their children off to the college would be available to them. So plenty of options there. Due to the take-up of land take-up of the site, there is no scope to keep laybys on both sides, and in actual fact, that situation with the lay-by and the bus bays on that exit onto Brackler Street on that one-way system at Cheapside was not the best in highways terms anyway, because you're pulling out, a bus could be pulling out at the same time as someone pulling out from one of those lay-by areas. Plus, you've got to look at cars speeding up behind you coming around the bend, around the top end of Cheapside. So it's from a technical point of view, it wasn't the best highway situation, so that's being removed, so that potential conflict will not be an issue going forward. So, but in the main, there'll be plenty of options around the scheme to allow close drop-offs for this development. There's a taxi rank pull-in as well, just further up from the bus stop. So that is another option if it's just literally dropping off quickly your son or daughter. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rodri. Did you have any comeback on that question? Okay, thank you very much. So, Councillor Easterbrook.
Thank you, Chair. It shows how important the motor car and where we're going to park it is, in the fact that we are an hour into this meeting and we're still talking about the motor car. So if I had a magic wand and was to take every motor car off the road, an hour later, we're still talking about it. I think we've got to look at what we've got. If we look around the schools, motor cars are there. Back 10 years ago, I used to take my son to Brenteg School. All around there is gridlocked, not just in the immediate vicinity, but all the way around. I think that resident parking will certainly help, but it is almost, it's not working with, it's actually stopping. And if we look at the motor car industry, just as well disappear as far as the new legislation that's coming in, because there is no place for motor cars on the road anymore in this new world that we're going to live in. 100 years ago, Bridgend was a market town. We still have a market, but things have changed. And all of this change is actually being forced on us. We're being told this is the way that you need to live in this fabulous new world. I wonder how many of our staff, which I believe there are 4,000 of them, no wonder they're working from home, because there's nowhere for them to park. I wonder how many of us in this chamber and those that are within earshot online actually would instead of taking a bus or a train or their active travel, whether they would jump into the car because of convenience. I wonder how many of us, if we were working in Bristol, and I did, would jump on a train, which is what I did. So I think that this to do with car park, and I fully understand about the eco part of it, but I just wonder how are we going to manage. I think that, are we putting the college into the centre of Bridgend? Because we are creating the problem of travelling in. We are telling people, forget whether you've got a car or not, that when you arrive at your destination, there is going to be nowhere to park it. I haven't been over to the campus in Pencoed, but I wonder whether those employees there, how many car parking spaces are there, and are they being taught about the new modal shift? Because I don't see too many people walking back and forth. I don't see many of our council staff walking back and forth. And I wondered how many of our council staff are actually parking in our limited space of shoppers' car parks. So we need to learn the lesson first. And then we're talking about bringing 200 staff into the college, into Bridgend, and saying, please don't drive. That I think this is all a little bit backwards. It may be the new way of planning, and the fact that if you get rid of a car park, you can't replace it. But that's almost like getting rid of hospital beds and saying you're not having them back. Or it is a vital part of our town centre. Or we get somebody to park 20 minutes away, which is what people who work in town are doing. We can't force this on people. We can try to change their mind. But as I look around this room, I wonder how many people have parked within a very short walking distance. So I think there is still a lot of work to be done on the car parking and how we're going to change people's habits, really.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Easterbrook. You raised quite a few philosophical themes there, and you're quite right. We are talking about car parking, and we know that it is an issue. I think the statistics for this building, when pre-COVID, is about 1,000 people working in this building. None of them had very few of them had a dedicated car parking space. They parked in the town centre, in existing car parks. I think there was a subsidised scheme at one time, but yeah, many people drove. But I used to catch a train regularly, and there were about 6 of us within the department that regularly used to catch. It was a bit of a social occasion, so it does work. Not everybody is dedicated to coming in the car. Perhaps modal shift doesn't mean that you give up your car completely, but you make effort to do so. And I personally, I'm a big petrol head. I own 2 cars. I've got a Jaguar. I've got a Toyota sports car. I don't drive them both at the same time. I do less than 3,000 miles a year. All my local journeys are now done on an electric bike. Now, if I can make that shift, having spent 40 years playing about with cars, I've had 40 odd cars in that time, of various descriptions. I'm prepared to put that to one side. And with my local journeys, I either walk to the shops, or I take my e-bike. If I go to the town centre, I'll take the e-bike, because one, it's better for the environment, it's better for everybody, it's better for my health. I'm making an effort, and it's that modal shift we need to encourage in people. And it's not going to happen overnight, and people are wedded to their cars, and that's part of the problem. It's that convenience. I see people in my local village drive 500 metres to the village shop. They could walk it quicker because the car park in the village shop is chock-a-block sometimes. You can't get in or out. I walk past them all laughing, pick up what I need locally and walk back home. So the modal shift is about making small changes to your lifestyle. I'm not expecting cars to disappear overnight. It's not going to happen, we know that. But what we can't do is encourage more of it. This building we're looking at today is going to be here for 100 years. We don't know what the situation with transportation is going to be in 100 years. But what we've got to do is encourage people to make that change. And it's not punitive on people, it's not punishing people, because we know the impact of driving cars has on communities, on air, on congestion, on carbon emissions. We know what that is doing to our climate. This authority has declared a climate emergency. The Welsh Government has declared a climate emergency. And a lot of those emissions are down to private motor vehicles. So that's why the policy is there. It's not changing things overnight. It is encouraging the modal shift. So I fully understand the views that are put here, that have been put out, and I can understand the concerns, but we can't get more sustainable than a town centre location. And 200 people coming into that town centre has got to be good for the town centre. Where are they going to go for lunch? Where are they going to, what are they going to do in their lunch break? I mean, when I'm here, I go to walk around the town centre, I call into shops, I buy things. I don't like to buy things online if I can help it. I'd rather go into a shop and buy something. And when I'm in the town centre, that's what I do. And a lot of my colleagues, a lot of people, a lot of officers here do exactly the same thing. We spend money in the town centre. I may not have driven here, but I am contributing to the regeneration of the town centre in a very small way. And having more people in there to do that, and having the number of students that are coming in, that can only make things better for the town centre. It's got to give it more vibrancy and more life. And that's the driver. It's not people parking here or driving in, it's the people using the facilities. And that's what we've got to be mindful of. But I fully understand the concerns that have been raised, and I know this is an issue, and we've got to try and manage it going forward. And one of the principles of having a travel plan for such a big use as this, with lots of people in it, is that that travel plan will evolve over time. It's a living document, and it's reviewed on an annual basis, and where it needs to be amended or changed, then that's the opportunity to do it. But the responsibility for that is on the college. They have to manage that process. And any big employer or any big organisation, us included, we would have to similarly do a travel plan for any new developments we do for our own benefit. That is the way we're thinking. It's encouraging a different approach. Yeah, there are people that will never give up the car and they will drive in, and that's quite clear. But as I said before, Bridgend is well served by car parks. I've never failed to find a parking space when I come here. And as I said before, when there's 1,000 people working in this building, even if half of those people drove in, there was accommodation for them within the town centre car parks. So, as I mentioned before, this is something that will be looked at as part of the regeneration strategy. We need to know what our expectations are going to be for car parking and what the demand is going to be. But that's another piece of work. But for this particular application, for this development, what has been provided is acceptable. It is acceptable. Thank you, Chair.
I'll just add one point to that. Actually, I'm looking around the room. I don't think anybody here is a 16 or 17-year-old ready to go back to college. I think sometimes we have to, if we talk to 16 and 17-year-olds there, that they are the people in the community who are most worried about ecology, most worried about green matters. And I think if we ask for them for their opinions, this is just my own personal view at the moment, they would be pushing very much to move things to active transport. I think they would say the same things as we say as well, which is, well, yeah, that's great, but you've still got to get that transport. You've got to make the facilities and the infrastructure and the transport. They will say that as well, but I think the students there will actually be very supportive of trying to move to a lower car usage, I think. So sorry for interrupting there, it's just a chair, but I'll go now on to Councillor John, who has another question, I think.
Thank you, Chair. It was brought up in the site visit yesterday that the old college, as will be the old college, will be opened up for parking. Would it not be worth putting a condition on the planning that maybe the staff would park in the college and the students to park in Pencoed and be shuttled in and keep the 39 spaces for visitors rather than staff? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Would anybody like to take that? Yeah. Thank you, Rodri.
Thank you, Councillor. Obviously, in the interim period, it's going to take 2 years for this development to be built and then occupied. For a period after that, they might have access to the old campus, but then we don't know what's going to happen with it after that. So there's no point us sort of using that as potential car parking space, and we can only look at this scheme on its own merits, really. We can't bank on another site being used for parking for staff or students, whatever. So in its of its own as an application, it's acceptable in planning terms, national and local planning policies. The college have got 2 years now to persuade their staff and advise their staff that when they move to the new campus, on the plus side, they'll have a nice new facility. On the negative side, if they wanted to drive in, they won't necessarily have access to a parking space. But they've got the 2 years now to engender that modal shift within their staffing structure and tell them that is what's going to happen. So I don't think there's any real point in us allocating or keeping the spaces on a site that we don't know what will happen to it in the future, because that's obviously going to be redeveloped. As we discussed yesterday, the Vice Principal mentioned that has got some a lot of capital value, and that will be used to pump back into the college. So that is the driver for it. So I don't, like I said, I don't think there's any point in even starting up, allowing staff to still park there, still encourage them to drive in and then walk to the new campus. They've got 2 years to decide whether or not they want to work there if they can't park there, or park there easily, and then take it from there. So I hope you can understand we can only look at the application as put before us on this particular site. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rodri. We'll go to one last question, I think, from
Sorry, Chair.
Sorry, Councillor John, you want to come back?
Would I be right in understanding that, I think it was the Vice Principal told us yesterday, that the old college campus is earmarked or ring-fenced for education only?
Janine?
Yeah, go on. Janine, after you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor John. Well, at the moment, that campus is for an education purpose in the local development plan, because it is an education now. And so going forward, we would have to have conversations with the college to see what proposed use could be for it. What is very clear, though, is that the college, it's a £70 million development. And the intervention rate, whilst Welsh Government are giving 70%, the college have to contribute 30%. So the college has to put significant multi-million pounds into the development of this new site, and some of the value will be in that Cowbridge Road site. So there is no doubt that at one point or other, when they do move into the new facility, they will have to look at what the use could be of that site on Cowbridge Road. So currently, yes, it is an education site, but in the future, if there was a move to change that, number one, it would be contrary to what's in our local development plan. But number two, it would have to be benefit from a detailed planning permission. So at the moment, you're right, it is an education site, but there is no doubt that the college will need to dispose of it in the future because they need that capital receipt to pay for their contribution for this new build.
Thank you, Janine. So one last question then from Councillor Wathen.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's along the same vein as Councillor Johns, but has consideration been given to providing park and ride for the college staff going forward?
That scheme is not before us, but that could, under the review of the travel plan, like we mentioned, live documents, that could be introduced at a later date. There is a bus shuttle service likely to be from the Pencoed College site, mainly for students, but obviously if it's suitable enough, it could be utilised by staff as well. So that's up to the college to manage, really, and to convince us that the travel plan is working, and if the travel plan as submitted is not working reviewed after occupation, then that sort of measure will be obviously thought of and potentially introduced at a later date. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rodri. Okay, thanks. So I think that's the end of the questions. So thanks, everybody. I wanted to give this as much time as we could because it is such an important matter and a strategic project. So we'll ask, are there any other final questions before I move to vote? Okay, so we had a movement and a second earlier. So if I can refer to you to the recommendations on page 35. Could I ask if there are anybody who would vote no against this, please? So no votes. So can we take that as carried unanimously? Thank you all very much for your time. We have been running now for just over an hour and a half, so I will suggest that we now have a 10-minute break after that quite a long session. Thank you to all our guests for speaking, and thank you all to the councillors for very positive comments and also some reasonably concerns as well. So thank you. We'll take a 10-minute break, and we'll start back at, what time will that be?
Half past?
We'll start.
Half past 11.
We'll park at 11:30. Thank you very much.